Hello again, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of Bet CaneSport with Lee Sterling, our weekly look at the Miami Hurricanes from the betting perspective. I'm Gary Furman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again by Lee Sterling himself of Paramount Sports. You can see the website. You can see the phone number at the bottom of the screen. If you want the latest and greatest advice on your sports prognostication activities, Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports is the place to go. They will help you enormously. But Lee, right now you're going to help us figure out the Miami Hurricanes because you were looking like a genius for a while last week when the score was 7-0 Stanford until the later stages of the second quarter. We discussed how the line seemed a little bit aggressive and Miami was favored by too many points. But then Stanford basically ran out of gas in the third quarter, could only muster up -1 yards of total offense. Miami pounced, and by the fourth quarter, Stanford was absolutely totally done, and Miami covered the spread. The beauties and wonders of sports prognostication, and now we have a new challenge this week in an SMU team that just laid an egg a week ago at Wake Forest, and you're going to tell me how you can know what to expect. I certainly don't know what to expect from SMU this weekend. I mean, a week ago I would have said, don't sleep on this SMU game, and that's going to be a tough out for the Hurricanes up there in Dallas. Now we see they're a little bit of a beaten up team. They're coming off a really bad loss at Wake Forest. That will either rally the troops or vice versa. Lee, tell us what's happening this weekend in Dallas.
Doesn't it seem like every team that we're about to play loses the week before, and you're going to get, you would think, their best shot? So that's what's crazy, except for Stanford. And I mean, look like, 7-7 at half. How many times are you going to get outscored 35-0? So that's why I rarely play games above like mid-20s, because you got the scrubs in at the end of the game, and anything can happen. Now, what I think happened was, obviously, Stanford doesn't have a whole lot of talent, and they had like 15, 20 plays they thought could work. And then you get the offensive coordinator. He's looking at the sheet, and he's like, well, already ran that one. I think they'll be on to this one. I'd be onto that one too. And then you're like, do I go on to these other plays that don't work so well, or do I try to recycle stuff? And that's the conundrum you end up in. And it usually doesn't work out so well. So unless you're really talented. So a lot of these teams
have no problem recycling. The fans are up in arms about the runs up the A and B gaps. That's working for the Canes, Lee.
Yeah. When you're playing not great teams. And I know that, obviously, Dawson's very, very sensitive to hearing that, but good teams will be able to slow that down, and we saw that against Louisville. That was our game plan. So now we know Rhett Lashley, in his fourth year since he left Miami, going to prepare for this game. Doesn't have a real advantage. He's going to prepare hard. Coaches tend to do that, and there's really no bad blood. He left, No. In a positive fashion here. He just was moving on to obviously a better job, being a head coach for the first time, but doesn't know the coordinators. So that real no big advantage for him. Their problem since their loss last year in the ACC championship game is this team really isn't that good. They're not that talented. In fact, I think they're something like maybe 2-8 against the spread since that loss in the ACC championship game. So usually that kind of tells you that you either don't have talent or you're not preparing and playing well, or a combination of the both. In their losses to the two only teams with good offenses this year, Baylor and TCU, they gave up 48 and 35 points. They had a really good defensive line last year, headed by a lot of ex-UM players. Yep. This year, not so great. Their only decent win was against Clemson, 35-24. But, Clemson didn't have Cade Klubnik for that game. He did not play. So SMU's best offensive weapon is former Cane, Romello Brinson. He has something like 38 catches. Next closest guy has 10 less than that. They just don't have great talent. No. Anywhere. Their defensive secondary is really weak here. I think Miami going to have a good showing. I bet you they have 7,000 fans show up rooting for them, find their way into the stadium here. I think it might be tight for a while. If I had to guess, but I think Miami should pull away late, hit on some big plays. I just don't think their defense can hold up all game long. They'll come out fired up and ready to go, and Stanford did that. Part of the reason, I think now looking back on why we were just so stale on the first half, it was a carryover from the week before. But once we got going, I thought we looked good. He's going to have to look, Carson Beck, he's going to have to do more checkdowns. I mean, we're going to have to find other receivers as the season goes on, get our tight end more involved, that third receiver. He did go to the third receiver more in the last game, but teams are on to what we do. Trust me. So I like Miami here, 38-21.
All right. So good week to bet the Canes, according to Lee Sterling. And I imagine a lot of people will be doing that this weekend. All right. A couple other games I just wanted us to touch on today. You got Georgia Tech going to North Carolina State. And if somebody is going to trip up Georgia Tech, this might be Italy. They're 5.5-point favorites. An NC State team that's been very up and down this year and very hard to figure out. I hope you have a way of figuring it out. What's going to happen in that Georgia Tech game against NC State?
All right, so one team, Georgia Tech, finds ways to win and cover, and the other, NC State, has lost 4 of the last 5. Their only win was against Campbell. So they have a couple decent wins early in the year. Now, looking back on it, Virginia and Wake Forest, probably Virginia was just coming together when they beat them. C.J. Bailey from South Florida and Chaminade, a really good quarterback, does have a propensity to throw interceptions, though. He lost his number 1 target, Justin Jolly, and had 36 catches and 5 touchdowns. After that, nothing great. He's his safety valve. He likes to use him over the middle of the field. NC State's defense, only 11 sacks in 8 games. Don't get to the quarterback. Just 5 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. That's 7 takeaways in 8 games. Not good enough here. Their defense does not have many good players here, and that's the reason they're losing. They're losing shootouts here. I like Georgia Tech here. 31-21 might be close. Another one close for a while, but as long as Georgia Tech doesn't have a couple key injury during the game to a quarterback or key receiver, they should be okay. A lot of people don't realize they're one of the 6 undefeated teams. Now, people who follow the ACC do, but a lot of people around the country still haven't figured it out. Georgia Tech's a good quality team, and hopefully, or maybe not so hopefully, if we're in the top 4 anyway somehow, we'll find out whether we want to play Georgia Tech or not. But our paths could definitely cross.
Yeah, we've been debating that at CaneSport. Is the ACC championship important? I come on the side it's absolutely important. What do you think you're playing for every year? If all you're playing for every year is a national championship and that's the only way you could be successful, you're not going to be successful very much. You're basically wasting your time playing college football. But conference championships are winnable every single year, and they do mean something. Miami has never won the ACC. If I asked you right now, odds on Miami to win the ACC this year, what do you think they would be?
25, maybe 30% tops, because we may not even be in the game. And remember, there is also, you love for the kids to win the ACC championship. You love for them to get a ring. You love to say you're ACC champions. But there is a scenario. Look at all the teams in front of us, and people are worried about Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's probably going to take a loss somewhere, at least one loss. So teams like that, if we can somehow end up in the top 4 and don't play in the ACC championship and you get one of the 4 buys, not a horrible thing if you're trying to win a national championship.
Right.
And that first game would be at home too. Well, I mean, if we're 5 through 8, it would be home also, but you got to play that extra game. You might take on injuries. So, it's so much
interesting dynamic. I would like for the mindset to be there's a score to settle with Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
And go settle that score, and then you'll still be in the top 4 and you'll still get your bye.
True.
That's the way I look at it, man. Go win the ACC, settle the score with Georgia Tech, and you're in the top 4. You get a first-round bye in the playoff. To me, that's the perfect scenario. We will see how it plays out. Somebody's going to have to take down Louisville, and their toughest game is at SMU.
But who knows with Louisville? They didn't look great last week. They could lose another game and then they're out.
Yeah, the problem is they just don't play anybody. Like I think their toughest game is at SMU.
Well, they could lose it. I mean, we've seen stranger things. They didn't look good for the first half, 3 quarters in their game last week against Boston College. Virginia, I don't think is great. They have a nice offense.
No, they're going to lose to somebody. Yeah,
right.
But Louisville is a legitimate concern now because they have the tiebreaker with the Canes. So we'll see what happens there. All right, one other game I wanted to ask you about, and that is the Florida Gators and Georgia playing in Jacksonville. The Gators are, Georgia's 7-point favorite in that game. What do you think?
Yeah, so the last 4 times they played each other, Georgia's been favored in all those games by at least 14 points. Will Florida play better than recently because Billy Napier got fired? I'm just going generally, when you like a coach, there's not as big of a bump the next game. If you don't like the coach, let's say, like Brian Kelly, who knows? LSU might come out there. They love their interim coach, and apparently he was not a good guy. There's a lot of stories going out about him, but that's a story for another day. So James Franklin and Billy Napier were known as good guys overall. And I don't know if there's going to be a bump there. Georgia's offense seems to be better than their individual parts. You look at their quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, not great. Don't have a great running back. Colby Young's their best receiver, not great. But, they've beaten Florida by 14, 22, 23, and 27 points the last 4 games. And Kirby Smart, off of a bye against a team with an interim coach, he has to have some kind of edge. I think they win the game 31-20. Florida might come out hot for a while. They might try some trick plays and maybe hit on something. But I think in the end, Georgia's probably the right side there.
All right, so take the Georgia Bulldogs. I personally think that line's a little low.
Yeah,
at 7. And if you're, I know you hate teasers at the college level, but Georgia in teasers to me,
-1, and maybe Georgia Tech, maybe Georgia Tech at plus a half a point. So I really like Georgia a lot at -1. So I don't know, it's different ways to attack it. Right.
All right, Lee. Well, we thank you so much for your wisdom. ParamountSports.com, 1-800-400-9741. Any specials this week?
Yeah, we heading into not November here. We call it Dovember, and I've never had this happen. So I released yesterday a 40-unit selection. We rate our selections from 10 to 50 units. I released a 40-unit selection, and I'm probably going to up it as the week goes on, just checking for injuries and weather. Probably going to be a 45 or 50. I'm almost sure. I also found another college game that will be a 40, and I found an NFL game that will be a 40, 45-unit game. Never had a week where 3 games are rated 40 to 50 units, and we have a career record of 73 and 29 on our 40 to 50-unit plays. So first time ever, it's $4.97. You're going to get every single game through the end of November. It's our phone service, 5 weeks of selections, just one place, ParamountSports.com.
All right, everybody, and run to the window and get that Georgia-Miami teaser going for this weekend. For Lee Sterling, I'm Gary Furman. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time, everybody.